Hello and welcome to Man's Model Moments. In today's video, I'm going to be doing something a little bit different for Christmas and answering some of the top frequently asked questions on the channel. Before I get to that, however, I want to give a personal shout out to Doug Hughes, the first member of what I hope will be a growing community of this channel's patrons. Thank you so much, Doug. Your support really is appreciated. If you want to join us on the Discord channel, get some free merch and weekly bonus content, go ahead and check out the Patreon link in the video description below. I've got some exciting Patreon exclusive giveaways lined up for 2023 as well, so come and join us and have a crack at those. Also, I have to give another massive thank you to all of you who have subscribed to the channel. As this video goes up, we should be just reaching 6,000 subscribers, which is phenomenal and really motivates me to keep producing these videos. Knowing that you like them is fantastic, and if you're not subbed already, I hope I earn that from you by the end of this video. That aside, let's get to it, shall we? So the number one thing I am asked about is this little pen-sized drill. This is called a Wowstick drill, not to be confused with the many varieties of Wowstick screwdriver that can be found. Essentially, this is a motorised pin vise, but it does have a number of features that set it above and beyond other tools and make it particularly suitable for our hobby work. The first is obviously size and weight. The Wowstick is a pen-sized device and has a similar weight as well, and it fits very nicely in the hand. The closest similar tool I have is this rotary tool. This one is just a cheap one from Aldi, which can be operated one-handed, but it is a bit ungainly and heavy. It's operated via this on-off slider switch underneath, which you can't really operate while using it. It is variable speed, and the lower end of this does make it suitable for hobby use, as I can demonstrate here on this spare bomb. So first I need to switch it on, and then bring the two together, which means I don't really have the level of control about where that drill bit goes that I'd really like to have. The drill does perform well though, although I wouldn't want to go to a drill bit smaller than this, as you're likely to end up breaking the bit because of all that back weight you have. The other disadvantage of the rotary tool is that you need a pair of pliers or a spanner to change the bit, which isn't exactly the most convenient thing, and again, risk catching and breaking delicate drill bits in the chuck. So whilst it's a great tool, it is better suited to tools like this, for grinding. Back to the Wowstick. It's rechargeable through a standard USB-C port on the rear, and is operated by this rubber-covered button by your index finger. It only operates whilst you have your finger down on the button, so you have very fine control. The motor is low speed and high torque, which is exactly what we want as modelers, so your drill bit doesn't melt the plastic, or create a lot of dust if you're drilling into resin. You can see the comparison in me using the drill here compared to before. I'm able to finely control where I'm drilling, even at oblique angles, and it's light and balanced, and I don't feel like I'm either going to stab myself or break the bit. To change the bit, it's a hand-operated chuck with knurled plastic that opens and tightens easily, but it's a fixed size. The 8 supplied bits all have the same shank size, which is the main weakness of the tool, although the sizes that are supplied probably cover most of what you need a motorised drill for. Smaller drill bits are best used manually in a pin vise. So to demonstrate the low speed, high torque, let's put in the largest bit and try to make some more holes in our unfortunate bomb. So here I'm just resting it against the table and going in with the Wowstick, and you can see we got a nice clean hole there. No tearing or twisting, no melting, and no desire for the drill to wrench the part out of my hand and throw it somewhere else in the room. Let's do another one just to prove it wasn't staged or a fluke. And there we go. Another nice clean hole. So there we have it. That's the Wowstick. It's certainly not an essential tool, but it is a nice one. Now the battery life is pretty good. I've charged mine just once in the 4 months I've used it, and whilst I don't use it every day, I'd say it gets used at least weekly, and often several days at a time. Charging only takes around 40 minutes, and you can see there's a little LED to indicate charging status on the back here. It is quite expensive, and the first one I ordered was in April 2022, and it didn't work. It just refused to charge, and although I got a refund, I couldn't get a replacement until August. I've had no issues with that one, so let's just hope I was unlucky and that's not a general indication of the QC process on these. The other drawback, as I mentioned, is the single chuck size, and whilst you do get a good range of 8 bits supplied with the drill, I don't know about replacement or alternative bits, so you might want to do additional research if that's an important factor for you. I do have the Wowstick linked in my Amazon store, and of course that makes it easy to return or replace if you are unsatisfied in any way. I will say now that I have mine, I'd find it hard to go back to not having it. The next most requested item on my list is Sprue Goo, which you've probably seen me using on many of my videos, and it's mentioned on my Hobby Essentials video, which is linked above if you've not seen it. This is great stuff. It can be made to your own preference, and it can be used for all sorts of things. More on that in a future video. As a lot of people have asked, I'll show you how to make it here. Firstly, you'll need a glass bottle. An old paint bottle, Tamiya glue bottle, spice jar or equivalent is fine. Next, you need some sprue. This can be anything you like, any colour you like, it's not like we're short of choice. You'll need to cut up your sprue, and for this you'll just want to use standard side cutters. If you've got really nice single blade cutters like God Hand, find a cheap pair elsewhere because you don't want to be using those for this. The final thing you'll need is some form of polystyrene cement. It's not really important what you use here. I'm using this Humbrol cement that comes in starter kits, which I think is a great use for it. The first step is going to be cutting your sprue into small pieces. I'm cutting this into bits around 10mm here, but the exact size doesn't really matter. I'm putting these into our little glass bottle and continuing to fill it until it's up to about the 40% mark. Once you're happy with the sprue you've cut up, you can add the cement. I'm adding all of this tube here, but again, the volume you're adding isn't critical at this point, just as long as you're covering up all the sprue in the jar. You can then cap it and leave it overnight. So this is the next day, and you can see what's happened is all the plastic has swollen as it's absorbed the solvents, so now we have these blobby bits of softened plastic. All I'm going to do here is open up the bottle and give them a stir, just to get the more dissolved plastic away from the centre of the pieces so the solvents have a better access to the rest of the remaining plastic. I'm then capping it again and leaving it once more overnight. Coming back to this and opening it up on the next day, you can see we have a much more uniform sludge. And in fact, this had fallen onto its side and you can see it's all flowed into a single amorphous entity on the side here. Now this is a bit too thick for my liking, but now the plastic is dispersed in the solvents, it's very easy to make this up to the consistency we want. So I'm going to go ahead and add 2 more tubes of the Humbrol cement and give it a really good mix to create a decent compromise between fluidity and filling power. Now part of the beauty of Sprue Goo is that you can make what you want. Here I've got the small jar of more solvated plastic that we've just made, which would be more suitable for filling small gaps or sink marks, and you've probably seen me do exactly that with this very jar. Then I have this lighter coloured, much thicker goo that's good for broad application on the rear of joints, for example, where I want to add some strength. You'll have seen that perhaps on the Falca video. Now you might think that you could just dump a load of the thinner type on for the same effect, but remember that means you're putting on more glue or solvent onto the model, and that means that solvent may have the time to absorb into your model plastic, softening it and warping it, which is something you really don't want to have happen. So having 2 or more grades of Sprue Goo is handy for just that reason alone. Into the middle of my list, and we're at one of my favourite non-modelling substances used for modelling, and that's Pledge. This is the Pledge I've been using for the models I've shown on the channel. It's the Pledge Revive It Floor Gloss, and it's the one with the couple of chemicals I've mentioned in my Decal Solution video, again linked above if you've not seen it. so Pledge was originally Johnson's Clear, and then Pledge with Clear, and then this iteration. Sadly, this was discontinued in 2022, so if you can find a bottle of this either in an online or real life store, grab it before they disappear completely. I am searching for an alternative, and if anyone has any of the potentials that I've linked down in the video description, I only need a couple of millilitres to test it, so please get in touch via the channel email. Now, a few people have asked me about the availability of Mr. Hobby products, and whilst not ubiquitous, they are available at a lot of hobby stores, both in real life and online, including on my Amazon store. The two products I use most from this line are Mr. Dissolve Putty, which is a bit like a commercially available Sprue Goo, and Mr. Surfacer. Here's an old Airfix Super Etendard that I've used Mr. Dissolve Putty on, and you can see it dries quite hard, but unlike a lot of model fillers that I've used, it doesn't seem to crumble or pit. It does sand well, however, so it's quite a good product if you don't fancy making Sprue Goo or want something that's a bit harder when dry or just has a uniform consistency. As I mentioned, the other product I use from Mr. Hobby is Mr. Surfacer. This is a liquid material that you can brush on to unify a surface, fill minor imperfections and prep for painting. It's lacquer based, which means quite short drying and hence short working times, and some grades are also available in spray cans. Of course, being lacquer based, you will need cellulose thinners to clean up after using it, unless you're using the rattle cans of course, and it's pretty unpleasant to work around, and ideally you should use a chemical filter mask when applying it. It does come in various grades, from the more coarse 500 up through 1000 and 1200 to a finishing primer of 1500. Again, it's a nice to have product in your arsenal, but by no means essential. Now, I haven't cut this part of the video just to show you how short the working time is on this. From application to this is now touch dry. So it really does accelerate some of your finishing stages of modelling. Finally, I'm going to talk about the two main plastic cements I use, as people have asked how and why I use each. I'm going to demonstrate some of this using a missile from the spares box. Typically, I use Contactor Precision Cement where I'm going to need a very strong bond, where there's a large surface area to be bonded, or any other time where I need a longer working time. The reason for this is that Contactor Cement is a much thicker liquid, as I can show you here by putting some on this surface. Hopefully you can see it's just sitting there. And I need to add quite a lot before it starts to form a drop and flow. It has pretty high surface tension due to the additives inside it. Having said that, the precision applicator tube still gives a decent level of precision in getting the glue where I want it. Now let me contrast that with the Tamiya Extra Thin. You should be able to see hardly any is being applied, and it's just marking the surface like it's wet. That's because, as you can see by the movement of the liquid inside the bottle here, it's just pure solvent. In fact, in the time it's taken me to cap this bottle and show you that, it's completely evaporated from the surface, whereas you can see the contactor cement is still there. So let me show you how those different properties change how we use the two products and how we can use those to our advantage. Here I'm applying contactor cement directly to the joining surface of the missile. We don't need a huge amount, just a very thin smear across the whole contact surface. I can then carefully align the second piece and gently press them together. Now I don't need to rush, and what's more is that if I've made some catastrophic error, maybe I've forgotten to add some prior piece which won't fit when this is done, I can actually gently prise these surfaces apart. I can then fix the error and press these back together and they'll still be firmly cemented together. This is because those heavier additives are keeping the solvent in contact with the surfaces longer, extending the evaporation time and allowing that extended working window. The potential disadvantage is that this can cause seams, where the glue and plastic squeeze out and dry outside the joint, much like a weld on a metal. And the analogy is quite apt, since effectively we are welding these pieces together, we're just using a chemical to melt the pieces together rather than heat. You can see this more on small pieces of course, as I'm showing here with this little guidance fin. Now compare that with the Tamiya Extra Thin. We put the pieces together first, and then come in with the cement. The solvent flows into the join, drawn in by capillary action, almost immediately melts the plastic and then evaporates. This has more of a spot welding effect than our contactor, and leaves pretty much zero residue. Here you can see the solvent flowing into the crevices here as I touch it to the sides. Now this is not working as well as if the part were present here, because this space here is actually way too wide for capillary action, but you can see it happening at the corners and the edges. And this is exactly what we're exploiting here, and also when we do a pin wash, for example. Now you can flood solvent type glue into a channel like this, and then place your part in it. This will have a similar effect using contactor, but form a much more instant bond. Again, I can demonstrate that here by putting this fin in with the Tamiya. And then on this side, I'm going to use the contactor in the same manner. Now I know I didn't glue them at exactly the same time, but hopefully you can see that the Tamiya side is pretty much set already. There's a little movement there, but very little, whereas the contactor has quite a wide range of movement as that solvent is in contact with plastic and not immediately evaporating, giving it a longer contact time and deeper penetration. If I were to just put the missile down on the table now, that contactor glued fin would slowly droop towards the ground. So this obviously affects how we use these and build our models. For the 1/24th scale Spitfire I'm currently building, which has a lot of internal surface area in the wings for instance to glue, I won't be using Tamiya Thin, because by the time I got to the end of applying it, the first application would have already evaporated and the surface have become inert. On the flip side, I won't be using contactor for the wing and trailing edges, since I don't want excess cement and glue seeping out that I will then need to clean up. What I will actually do is use contactor across all these wing cords and spars, join them together and then use Tamiya Thin to close up the outward facing pieces, giving me both that internal strength and minimum cleanup. Well, that concludes today's video. All that's left is for me to wish you a very happy festive break, look after yourself and those around you, and I'll look forward to seeing you all in the new year. That's all for this instalment of Man's Model Moments. If you enjoyed the video, please click the like button, subscribe to the channel for more like it, and share this video with others you think would also enjoy it. You can also follow me on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook, and if you're feeling generous then I also have a Patreon, which is absolutely the best way of helping me to grow the channel and produce more content like this. With that, I hope you have plenty of modelling moments of your own, and I look forward to welcoming you on the next video.